You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Andrea Meharg.
You nailed it.
I'm telling you, sometimes I just get it. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do professionally?
Yeah, so I am a mom of two, and for work, I am a cannabis coach and educator. So I teach people how to use cannabis so that they can live healthier, happier lives.
Okay, now when we say cannabis, are we talking about CBD or are we talking about marijuana? What are we talking about?
So, cannabis is the scientific term and it encompasses everything. It encompasses marijuana, the stuff that most people associate with getting high or stoned, but it also includes the hemp plant and CBD and all the other beneficial compounds.
Yeah, the term is kind of like an umbrella. It has both of them under there.
Absolutely. Yep.
So when it comes to educating people more on the lines of cannabis, what are you trying to promote so much? Like it seems like the media really focuses on the fact that the healing properties of it. We're seeing it just become first of all in America, like it's going to be different for you in like Canada or something, but it's becoming very, very popular now. It's becoming very, very legal, mostly because people are starting to look at this as an alternative medicine towards what we've been taking for so long, which is just a pill, which is basically opioids. It's just terrible. It drains people. It has more health risks than a certain plant or something can actually do the same thing, but not have all the side effects.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm going to back up for a second and tell you why I'm a cannabis coach because I think that informs. I think finding out why people are interested in cannabis is really important because you'll hear like snippets of your own story or stories of loved ones. And I think that can be really eye opening. So, um, I was a elementary teacher for quite a long time and I worked in a tough school. And about 3 years ago, I suffered from like a severe bout of depression that I didn't like. I'd never been depressed in my life. I didn't know what was happening to me, and I got taken off work, and I just literally spent the day in bed crying, and couldn't get better. I tried medication and meditation, and I went to the doctor and the therapist, and I went for walks, and I did everything, and I couldn't get better. I couldn't go back to work. I couldn't mother my children. I couldn't like be a partner to my husband. So for Christmas that year, my mom gave me a bag of weed and said, "Hey, I think this might make you feel better." And my husband and I stared at it for a while and like had to watch a YouTube video to learn how to roll a joint. But when we first smoked pot on the couch, I laughed for the first time in months. And it was like the clouds had been parted for me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in here. Like I Andrea's really inside. It was like so life affirming. And I knew that I could use this to get out of the depression. And it took me forever to figure out how to use pot to like feel better and be able to live my life as opposed to being stoned on the couch because it's like hard to figure out all of that stuff. And I couldn't believe that no one was around who could like help me figure out how to do this. So that's why I started this business is because I want to teach other people how to use this plant so that they can exactly what you were saying, like get off pharmaceuticals if that's what you want, get off opioids, sleep better, laugh on the couch, all of those things.
You
Um,
hit something pretty major in my life that I do want to talk about too. But hold on,
yeah, go.
I got so many things. When it comes to marijuana or cannabis, whatever you want to say, like I love hearing everybody's different experience with it because the list goes on and on. I've talked to people that that talked about how much benefit it's changed their life. It has done major things in the medical industry, such as helping people with PTSD, such as helping people with many different things, such as older people using marijuana to start helping with Parkinson's, being able to slow it down, the progress of that. Um, but I've also heard the complete opposite side too. And I used to say marijuana was never a gateway drug, but I do change my thoughts on that because it is a gateway drug. But it's the same thing that it would be as people are different. You know, a Diet Coke to me might be good and a Diet Coke to you might taste awful. We have these addictive things in our I guess, personality or in our code, in our DNA. And sometimes people turn to something a little bit different after trying marijuana. I've talked to people in the complete reverse from it that hate marijuana only because it led them to cocaine. But it's not because that drug specifically led them there. It just give them more of an opportunity to try something else. Something, you end up building up a tolerance for something. I know people in my family that smoke so many times a day just to stay high, or if I took one puff, I would be high all day.
Right. Yeah.
And when you build up a tolerance, you start looking for a different thing. But some people don't do that. Some people just stay on the same thing, maybe take a break or give themselves some leeway to their tolerance to go down. And then, like I said, when it comes to it being a gateway drug, it all depends on the type of person. But hearing the experiences that people have with it and how we're starting to notice this a little bit more. I mean, I suffer from depression. Um, I did the dumbass thing as a kid that doesn't know exactly what medication, how powerful it can be. I was taking it for a little while and I didn't like it, so I just stopped taking them. And when you're on an antidepressant, you don't just stop taking it. So much like marijuana, it's it was see, I only smoked for a few years because I ended up getting so blasted to the point where my thoughts were way too much, where it was like I'm way too high to even
Mhm.
function. Like this couch
Mhm.
seems like there's a lot of steps to get off of it. And I mean, it was just my bad intake of it. Obviously, I was trying to keep up with people that were around me that have been smoking it for way longer,
Mhm.
doing heavier strains, and that's not the thing. You have to go with as much as you want to go, but it's really hard to guess what your level is. What is your stop scenario? You get high, you're like, I could do a little bit more.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah.
can't. You probably don't want to.
Yeah. I literally just had a situation with my one of my oldest friends this past weekend. We went away for a weekend and she tells me that she tries pot brownies all the time. So I brought her some cookies and they're fairly low dose. And she had one in the car on the way to the city we were going to. And about half an hour later, she said, "I'm not feeling anything. Your cookies suck and I'm having another." And I told her, "Don't you dare. You need to wait a really long time to see if this one's working for you." And she popped one in her mouth anyway. And an hour later, she was unresponsive in the car, like you couldn't get anything out of her. And an hour later after that, she barfed all over herself and all over my friend's brand new car. But it's because she didn't wait. She didn't see how the first cookie affected her. So, and people have those terrible experiences and then they think pot is terrible and I'm never taking it again. But maybe if you took like a quarter of the cookie, maybe you'd feel really good?
Well, especially with edibles too, it's hard to really know the right dose.
Yes.
I'll never
Yeah.
forget heading back from a concert and like I've been up for probably 2 days. It was a double event. So I'm coming back from Philadelphia, heading to Ocean City, Maryland, and we live right next to the beach. So me and my buddy are like, let's just go to the beach right in the morning. We're gonna bodyboard all day. I got a bag of edibles, a bunch of cookies. They were all crushed up in the bag. So he's like, just eat one cookie.
Yeah.
I'm
How?
like, "What's one cookie? I can't judge because there's just crumbs in here." He goes, "I'm pretty sure there was only 2 in there." And I said, "Okay, I'll just eat, like, half the bag." I ended up eating, like, the whole bag, and then he goes, "Wait a minute, I think there was actually 4 cookies in there." I'm like, "Oh, I'm not feeling anything, so I think I'm okay." As soon as I hit the water, I was done. I was literally just laying down, letting the waves hit me. People were, like, walking by. I'm just looking up at the sky like, "It's so peaceful right now." And I remember heading back to his car and we're putting the body boards in the trunk and everything. And I'm like, all right, my right foot goes first and then my left foot goes second. And then there's a pebble I just stepped on. I can feel that. And as we're putting the boards in the car, he walks away to go use the restroom at like one of the bathrooms that they have on the beach. And this horse just walked up to me because they have random ponies, and I'm not tripping or anything. They have
No, for real?
random yeah, they have random ponies on the beach that just randomly walk. Like people take photos with them. It's called acetique. It's actually why it's pretty popular, is because people love seeing the horses and doing
Yeah.
photography there. So I'm sitting there and this horse just comes up as I'm like, and I just turn around and I'm like, oh, what's up? And I start petting this thing. And they ask you not to do that because they're wild. They'll bite you and they'll like actually mess you up and stuff. And I'm just sitting there petting it and like people are like, Rob, oh my God. And I start noticing everybody around me. I thought I was getting paranoid. They start taking out their cell phones and videotaping me. I'm stoned off my ass and I'm like, oh, I just think that they're videotaping me. They're not videotaping me. They're taking a picture of the water, getting all paranoid. Dude, this horse turned around, farted right in my face.
And you got it on camera. That's Perfect.
My buddy would, I mean, he holds it to me to this day with that. He goes,
As he should.
you pet a horse and it turned around and farted at you. I was
Yeah.
like, dude, I don't know what the hell was happening.
Oh, I think most people have that kind of story, right? That where they're just like, "Oh, I definitely should never do that again."
Well, what's your story then for maybe getting too high or maybe having just an
Oh,
overall great experience?
um, my too high story was that when I was first making edibles, I used to always make them with already been vaped buds. So that's like cannabis that you've used in your dry herb vaporizer. And when you're done with it, most of the medicine's out of the pot, but not very much. Or sorry, not all of it. So I would make my oils with that, and they were really low dose oils. And then I decided to make oil out of like bud that hasn't been used yet, and I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but I gave myself the same dose as I would with the really low dose as the high dose. And um I was in the middle of like food prepping for the week. So I had everything on the stove and I was like chopping stuff. And all of a sudden I was on the floor and I didn't know how I got there. And there's like stuff boiling in pots around me, and my kids are running around in the kitchen. And thank God I had my phone in my pocket, because I called my husband who was upstairs and I was like, "You need to come down and take over." And I was high for 36 hours. Like couldn't do anything. I was just in bed high. It was terrible. Kind of awesome, but terrible too.
See, my bad influence with just pot is just I've always gotten way too high every time I smoked because the person you smoke with, like my brother, we lived together, so it was like a bonding experience. And that's another thing I really like about pot is that when you get high or not too high but just right, you have so
Mhm.
much more expression and detail, and you're processing way more information on a deeper level. Where when you're not high, like ever since I've smoked for the first time, I can see the world in a different way. Like, and even though I don't smoke now, but I just see it in a whole nother light. I start looking at things with a little bit more detail. Like I notice like if this table that I'm like my computer's on right now, which I'm talking to you, if like the texture of it, like stuff that I just choose to neglect on my everyday life that doesn't really I don't ever think about. Like this is stuff that meant more to me when I was a little high or something. And my experience with just getting too baked in general, it was like I was trying to keep up with someone that does it like 8 or 9 times a day constantly, and then I was like, "Oh, well, I can do the same amount he does." So it just keeps coming and I don't ever stop rejecting it. And then later, like for me, my bad experience and also where I give pot major credit to is the fact it can tell you if you're doing horrible things to your body that you're not paying attention to.
Okay, tell me about that.
When I say that is you become oversensitive. And when I say that you become oversensitive, not only having like for me, my mind keeps running like a mile a minute to where I can't get it to stop because I have ADHD, so it's just naturally like that. But more of thoughts like stuff I shouldn't be thinking about, like, oh, don't forget to swallow. Hey, why do your teeth feel like that? Like random stuff like that. And
Don't forget to swallow.
y- yeah, well, I think you got what I mean on that one. But
No, no, I
but when I'm like sitting there, the one time I really like when I mean that you can kind of show you what you're doing wrong is my buddy calls me and he goes, "Hey man, do you want to go smoke some weed?" And I said, "Sure." And he goes, "Do you have any?" So it's like, "All right, yeah, I guess I'm getting you high." It's like, "Yeah, I can
Yeah.
go get some out of the drawer or something. I know I have a stash somewhere." And I remember before I went to go hang out with him, I used to basically eat this stuff like soup, but it's that Ken steak honey mustard.
Okay.
Okay, I used to dump that over my chicken tenders to where it would basically be a bowl of honey mustard with like 1 or 2 chicken tenders in it. Like I was like drinking half the bottle basically.
Ew.
And I felt fine, but then I randomly went with him and I'm in the back of this car. We drive out to like this I get this is maybe like an hour away just to go smoke near some water or something. Smoke on the water, shout out to them. But
Mhm.
literally I got so stoned to where the back of my head was spinning like I was on a tilt-a-whirl,
Yeah.
and then all the colors through my eyes felt like someone just turned the saturation up. And then I swear to God, I started like envisioning like we were in prehistoric times, like the sun was coming down. So everything was getting red. And I was picturing that red. And in my mind, I was like, is there a volcano happening in the background? I swear to you, I cannot make this up.
Yeah,
And
I know.
literally we're sitting there and he's like, "Rob, are you okay?" And I look at myself in the mirror, my fucking skin is pale, My eyes are yellow. I'm like, oh my God, dude, like think I'm way too high right now. And he goes, all right, well, we're gonna head out of here in like 10 minutes. I felt like I was in that car for 4 hours. He
Yeah.
goes, starts doing spin outs all over the fucking place right before we're leaving. I literally, right down the street, I literally just opened up the door and just vomited so much to
Yeah.
the point like I saw everything that I had eaten, all that stuff that was in my body that was toxic, and I completely was like, it's an eye opener for you too. I mean,
And then after that, do you stop eating honey mustard?
I haven't had it since.
Huh.
You know, it's just like you get too much of something sometimes. Sometimes you have someone that takes you the wrong way, someone that has, the very first time I ever smoked, which I'm going to ask you this. Did you get high your first time?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was the depression thing and you just tried smoking a
I
joint?
smoked pot when I was a teenager too, but I moved like it had been years since I smoked it when my mom gave us that. But yeah, the very first time, and same thing. I think we only took a couple of puffs off of it. But yeah, I was like, hi, and I loved my husband, and I loved my life, and I loved my children. And it was the first, like, I hadn't felt like that in so long. It was such a beautiful feeling.
Do you think that it just amplifies the emotions that we experience and starts to bring things that we tend to keep locked in our mind on, like, bring it up to the surface like a boiling pot a little bit?
I don't know if I have that experience myself. Like, I would have thought that if that was the case, then if I was in a really depressed state and I took some pot, that I would have felt like much, much worse. But I felt much, much better.
Yeah, you
So,
were more grateful for things is what I'm talking about. The things that your brain really prioritizes can be clouded by depression. It
oh,
can
I
be
see.
clouded by
Yes.
so many things. And that really, that smoking the pot showed you, no, you're fucking perfect right now. You have a
Hmm.
family that loves you. You have all this type of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
that's what I meant by that.
Yeah. It's like that's what I meant by the clouds opening up, that I had forgotten who I was inside or something, or I had forgotten that I used to be happy or I used to feel a certain way. And cannabis, like I smoked a joint and I all of a sudden could remember all of that. And it was like front and center. And just like you said, the feeling stays with you. So it's not like you're high and you feel grateful and happy, but afterwards you remember the loving feelings that you have. And I really do feel like it allows you to connect more deeply with people and be compassionate with people who maybe it's hard to be compassionate with. It's very helpful in that regard.
When it comes to, do you think that it opens up the inner eye or maybe a third
Hmm.
eye a little bit? People always talk about that and they draw it out so dramatic that it makes it look like you're like out of a cartoon or something, but I feel like it does unlock a piece of yourself. You know, you start to notice bad habits that you're doing when you're high, such as like, oh, I'm grinding my teeth right now, or
Right.
oh, I'm neglecting something, or I'm doing something. I need to maybe try this. And I've seen people clean the house on it. I've seen,
Yes.
like just completely change their attitude. And I think it does awaken us to a little bit of things, but I think it's very important to remember what's our boiling point or what's our breaking point for it, because if you do too much of it and you go over that breaking point, it does become a bad kind of trip, I would say.
Yeah, and that is where you can talk about where people really love the feeling of being high on THC. And because you build tolerance to THC, and some people build it quite quickly, then you're smoking two or three joints and you're still not getting that beautiful high. So then what else is there out there, that could bring that to you? So that's definitely something for especially people with addictive personalities to be concerned about. But the opposite of that is that cannabis can be used as a gateway drug off of opiates specifically. Lots of other things. CBD in particular is extremely beneficial for people who are struggling with addiction and to help them crave less, even like crave potato chips less, but like crave alcohol less, or and the system that cannabis works on interacts with the opioid system as well. So people who are struggling with opioid addictions or need opiates for pain relief can use significantly less opiates if they're incorporating cannabis into their life as well. So people are actually coming off of opiates and being able to use cannabis to manage their pain instead. So I think I appreciate the point about gateway drug onto drugs, but Maybe we need a new term or something because it can this particular drug can swing both ways.
I think that's like that with a lot of different things. But when it comes to what I mean by gateway drug was just the aspect of usually that's the one that's the easiest and that's the first one that a lot of people
Hmm.
try. That's the only kind of reference. It is definitely there are benefits to it. I've seen people that have made dramatic increases in just their overall well-being when it comes to severe depression, when it comes to PTSD, being back from war and using that, getting their medical. I mean, I almost got my medical license at one point to get off of uh, antidepressants, and also I'm an insomniac. And surprisingly, I didn't really know that insomnia can be helped with marijuana. Mostly because I get too fucking baked to the point I need to go to bed because I need this trip to stop happening.
Right? Yeah, so it's not like a restful sleep.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure it's probably done in the right matter. It can also help soothe you a little bit too. I've been able to get a few hours on it. It doesn't keep me asleep very long, but it does help.
I run a cannabis club in my little hometown where I live. It's a women's cannabis club. And we meet once a month and we have like a different workshop on a cannabis topic. And I make low dose edibles as, like not as a gift, but like if you want to come and try some. And every single month, the day after, I get emails from members and like new members to the club who are like, oh my God, I had half a muffin and I slept through the night. Like, what the hell did you do? Or, oh, I had a gummy and I slept through the night. And they like cannot believe that that's happened. So I don't know. I think trying something very low dose for you might help, right? You might be able to sleep through the night.
What do you choose to surround yourself with when you do get high? Like a lot of people, some people even read books. For me, I like to be a little bit surrounded by music or watch like a movie or something that keeps my mind off of things.
Um, I'm at the point now where I don't actually get high anymore. So I don't have that like euphoric out of body experience. Not out of body experience, but I don't have that like, what people think about when they're high or stoned and they're communing with the universe. I don't get that so much anymore. Cannabis is more just like a regular part of my life that I don't so I guess I don't really think about that, but yes, it totally makes music sound better and like makes shitty movies feel better. I think it makes everything a little bit better. Um
McDonald's is fucking amazing on marijuana, I can tell you that.
Absolutely.
I didn't realize I ordered a 20-piece McNugget and I thought that was like a normal meal. It's I don't know if it was because like when you order something small and the next thing you know you're waiting for like 30 minutes and other people are getting your orders first.
Yeah.
That happened to me after a concert, and I was sitting there like, they're like, "Rob, it's taking forever because you ordered 20 nuggets." I'm like, "20 nuggets is like normal, right?" And then I get it, and I'm like, "Oh, 20 nuggets is way too much."
That's a lot of nuggets. Okay, I want to ask you some questions now.
Okay.
Okay, so tell me about this podcast. Like what's your inspiration for it? What makes you get on the phone with people you don't know and chat with them for an hour?
Um, I guess like I've said it a little bit before, but I started this. I mean, I got out of school from probably 2015, and I was bullied really bad. My junior year, I actually ended up joining a gym. I was getting made fun of all the time by people I thought were my friends. Big anxiety from it where I didn't want to go to school anymore. And I joined the gym, and I've been going every single day for 7 years now, and I have not missed a day.
Holy
Um,
shit.
People that I try and show people like I'll post a six-pack picture on my personal Instagram, but I just show them like it's just consistency. And I mean, yeah, my exes follow me, so that's cool too. But at the same time, like I've had those people that used to make fun of me message me, and they gained weight after school, had a kid or something, and they want to get healthy. They have a beer gut or something from drinking too much alcohol, and they're like, "I want to change my life. How do I do it?" I've helped people lose 60 pounds. I've helped people, change their life for the better. I just say the gym is my thing. The gym is something where if I don't go, that's my fault. So I'm going to stay consistent and keep on going. And that's why I do it. But when I started this podcast was because in around maybe over a year and a half ago, I realized I was doing the same shit all the time. My life was a routine. I had graduated. I'm going to school again in college, taking classes, working, going to the gym, sleeping, taking classes, going to the gym, working, sleeping. I had no social life. All my friends were in their 20s. All they wanted to do is drink, and I'm not a fan of alcohol. I had a bad experience with that, so I stay away from that too. And I was like, if this is what life is, then life has really got to suck. And my buddy called me at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and that's usually when I get back from the gym, or if I'm working out now, I go to the gym at that time. And he's been on my podcast. His name's Brooks Holloway. You can check out his episode. We talked a little bit deeper into it, but he called me and he started explaining that he was on his roof drunk, and he didn't he felt like his whole life was controlled. And we talked for a little while, and I talked him down from it. And I asked him something. I said, I'm giving you this advice, but I'm in the same place that you are. You had your life set out for you. You were going to Harvard. You were like the teacher's like top student. You were a lead of the baseball team. And like, I understand that you didn't follow that and you feel like you're lost, but like I'm feeling the same thing, man. And I haven't talked to you in 5 years. We used to just eat lunch together for like 30 minutes. And you consider me someone that you would call in this moment? He goes, because I always knew you actually cared. And when he told me that, I said, how hard is it just to have conversation with people? I mean, we're living in a world where our communication is through a device, and it's
Hmm.
never in a good way. It's always in either I mean, sometimes it's in a good way when it comes to maybe like starting a business or something, but we don't choose to care about each other anymore. We're completely isolated from each other's emotions, what's going on in each other's lives. Family dinners have went from 7 to 3 a night at the most in most households. Used to
Yeah.
be an every night adventure. Now it's like, what'd you make? Okay, grab a plate, go upstairs, watch fucking Netflix. When
Yeah.
you come home every day, you build up, like, I consider your life as a glass window. And throughout the day, you're constantly receiving little micro fractures into the glass, okay? Even if you don't think about it, even if whatever. But when you go home and you go to sleep, those micro fractures don't get filled in, they stay there. So then the next day, it keeps building up until one day you don't have anyone to talk to. You don't have any way to express yourself, that you just break. You just crumble down onto your knees and start crying, or start getting to a point like how you were when you were just miserable laying in bed. And when that happens, like, it may be the real thing too. Make a diary, write some stuff down. Half the time you dream, it's inner thoughts and problems that are going on in your life that you're not thinking about, that you're not taking care of. If you're get a flat tire, realize that's an immediate problem. Realize that's something it's going to go away in time. It's not going to matter like a week from now. It's not going to matter later down the road. It's just an immediate problem, but it overwhelms us. If we took more time to be more connective to people, hear people out, have more conversations, which I started noticing from doing this. I've talked to close to 400 people, and everyone has a story. And I get so many times, why me? Why me? Because we all deserve conversation. I'm the last fucking person that needs to be talked about. I don't ever need to explain my life. I don't ever need to explain anything. But I want to hear you. I want to hear something that lights your fire up. I want to hear what you're passionate about, what you want to be doing. Let's talk. Let's shoot the shit. I mean, after that conversation with my buddy, before even deciding to do the podcast, I wanted to be a social worker, just because I've helped small kids who were going through major depression, all because of our social media. It's hitting kids younger and younger. Anxiety is getting bigger. They have the world at their fingertips now at the ages of 6 or 7.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is your way of like battling back against the war of the devices on us, kind
I would say it's a little bit more of like, I'm like a Hallmark greeting card.
of.
I'm fucking expensive, but it's good. You know what I mean? I just try and let the conversation flow. I've said things where people have obviously asked some questions on or don't really agree with, and I say that's fine. I don't agree with some things too, but I stay open minded. It's not hard to just listen or hear somebody out. Doesn't mean you have to agree. You don't have to disagree either. But every time you see a conversation now, it seems like everyone's on autopilot. You get that false question or false statement like, "Hey, how's your day going?" And they just keep on walking. Like, do
Yeah.
you really give a shit? Like, why am
Yeah.
I going to answer you? So now we just put our headphones in, go to the store, and just walk around never talking to one another.
It's true. When you not like pitched me, but when you talked about this podcast and you're like, oh yeah, we just chat. I was like, what? I don't understand what that means. Like, isn't there a list of questions that I should prepare for? And yeah, it's refreshing to just chat and not have expectations.
And
Um,
it's crazy too, because if we look at like the name really says it all. I never promote the show. I never go and tell people, like, when I'm a guest on other people's podcasts, they have a show structure that I follow. It's just not me though. I'm always been good at improv and just having a natural conversation, because I have such bad ADHD. I could be thinking about a ladybug and why the hell do they have spots on it and what do the spots mean? And have you ever seen a ladybug's like, see, I can just go off. And
yeah.
that's a conversation with me, and there's only one way to describe it, was being out of the norm or out of the blank. So hence, shameless show reference, I guess. But
I
when it
love it.
when it comes to, like, I'll get people, when I ask them to come on, they'll give me that why me, or they'll give me like, what do you want to talk about? Do you have a list of questions prepared? I need to know. And it's like, no, we're just gonna talk. If you want to bring up something, like, I've had people bring up aliens, I've had people bring up flat Earth theory, I've had people get into conspiracies.
Ooh.
Fuck it, I'm in. Let's go. I wish Bigfoot was real, because you know what? He's badass. He's the protector of the forest, and he makes Smokey the Bear look like a piece of shit. There you
And then
go.
we'd have Bigfoot, right? Like, just then we'd have Bigfoot. That'd be amazing. I'm gonna go back and listen to the flat Earth one. That interests the shit out of me.
Look, I stay open minded to it all. I've talked to people that I've been training to go into space, and when they say that, it's impossible. The Earth is not flat; it's a circle. Okay, it's a sphere. I'm like, okay, well, do you like to see what their perspective is though? When it comes, I just always try and bring in the other person's perspective. You know, I was walking on my local boardwalk, which is like just a mile and a half of straight nothing but wood boards, and like people skate on it. There's carnival rides and stuff. And I remember I had my headphones in, and overhearing in my headphones, there was two Jehovah's Witnesses, and one screamed at somebody and said, "You're going to hell." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Excuse me?" Like, I'm not a religious guy at all. So when I heard that, I was like, "Hang on a second." And I took my headphone out and I asked, "What'd you just say, man?" He said, "You're going to hell if you don't believe in Christ. If you turn to him now, you'll be saved." And I said, "But what about the people that don't believe in Christ? Or what about the people that believe in a whole nother religion? You're just knocking them in general and saying they're going to burn?" He goes, "Exactly. They can all be saved." He tried to hand me a pamphlet. I just said, "You have a good one, man." And after that, I studied parody religions, where I actually spent $45, pissed off my Maryland courthouse for an hour and a half, and got my ordained minister's license under the United Church of Bacon. You know,
United Church of Bacon?
I swear to you, it's a real thing. I got the degree and everything. I can send you
So
a
you could
picture.
marry me?
I could if you held hands in a park.
Oh my God.
I know it's the best feeling in the world. I told all my friends, now I'll marry you under the Church of Bacon. But I
I also need to get that, just so you know. After this, you have to send me all the information so that I can also do that.
his name is Jack. It's either Jack Churchill or Jack Whitehill.
Okay, I'm going to check that guy out. That's hilarious.
I mean, I stumbled across that religion through the first parody religion I did a podcast on, called Pastafarianism.
I've heard about that one.
Now, I looked at that, and throughout the podcast, I was laughing. But as I was reading it, and you're hearing me read the articles and all the statements about it as well, I started realizing it actually has a deeper meaning. When we talk about, like, I've seen a butterfly just get missed by a car, and I'll admit my life at the time was complete shit. But when that butterfly just got missed, I had a come to God moment where it was like, oh my God, that's all of us flying through this world just getting missed by that car. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, that butterfly could have got fucking hit, and then I could have got a completely different reaction. It's all bullshit, and I just keep on driving and going on with my life. But it's that same thing. When I was reading about Pastafarianism, I'm like, these people are nuts. Then I start finding out it was created by a guy in Harvard in 2006 that just wanted to show that it shouldn't just be one religion taught in the education system. It should be multiple. It should be open to all aspects of life. And it's really what someone can take from something that people think is so little and really running a mile with.
and and I think when you dive into anything like that, you find out that flat Earth, pastafarian, whatever it is, that it's filling a need, right? Like a need for connection or a need for a higher purpose, or like people are just seeking someplace where they can belong to.
Well, with marijuana or cannabis in general just becoming popular, the one thing I can tell you about my experience with cannabis is it really made me feel appreciated, and it really did. I felt love. I really
Yeah.
felt like the world mattered, that, like you said, that cloud opening up.
Hmm.
That's something that's happening in this world, and I think that's why it's becoming so popular is we're so disconnected from everyone, even people that are supposed to be intimate into our lives. I mean, we don't ever share our thoughts anymore. At least most people don't, just because it's, we're fine. If you're scrolling through your device, you don't even know what you're scrolling
Yeah.
through, but it's there. And we've
Yeah.
completely, really, with all this communication, all this coming together, we've isolated. The reason why I do this podcast.
Yeah, I'm curious about this whole thing as far as like connection and opening up your mind to see what happens with medicinal mushrooms coming out. Because in Colorado, there's a city that's just decriminalized it, and there's lots of work going into the psychological benefits of low dose, basically magic mushrooms for depression relief, but also as a way of becoming connected to the earth and to each other, and just um, again, what we're talking about, opening up that that third eye and realizing that it's not just us with our flat tire on a Tuesday morning, right? That we're part of something bigger.
Yeah, I've actually talked to a few people that study the realm of mycology and grow their own mushrooms. And as much
Hmm.
as we sat there and dive deep into their mushroom trip or acid trip, I always, that's one you really need to be careful with, because if you go too much on that one, you could really do something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to a
Mm-hmm.
few people that have went over the edge and really have never thought back to the original way they were thinking. They considered themselves a little bit messed up, like they had been to another realm or another, like,
Yeah.
it makes sense. I mean, I listened to my cousin explain to me 30 minutes how he lived the life of a fucking carrot because he took salvia, all from drinking carrot juice. He was like, dude, before the carrot juice even hit my lips, I lived this whole life of a carrot. I was the bird shit flying into the dirt and watching this carrot grow. And I'm like, holy shit.
Wow.
Like, it was so deep. I was like, there's no way you just
Yeah.
randomly thought of this. But when we talk about doing things, I think everything needs to be done in just the right amount, but we choose as people to go
Yeah.
overboard or
Yeah.
do too much. It's like, let's take time. The thing is, life, it's not very long, considering you could live to be 1 to 22, you could live to be 1 to 99, but it's
Yeah.
never long enough for people. That's why we use supplements, that's why we use all these things to try and prolong our life. But I think one of the best things about it is it's not meant to last long, but we're supposed to take in all the information we possibly can and enjoy every aspect of it.
And are you able to do that?
Honestly, the more I talk to people, and the more I really try and find my footing in this world, I feel like I'm understanding, but I'll never understand enough. I used to take, if you were a teacher back in the day, I was your worst student. I'd be the
You
one
were
that
my
would,
favorite student then.
I would be the one that would be taken out immediately, sent out of class all the time. I've had three teachers, and one I was lucky enough to get on my podcast who really truly believed in me, and worked with my ADHD. Because to everyone else, I mean, they thought I was mentally challenged. They were like, "He needs to be put on pills. He needs to be put in a room." And having someone really put faith in you and then losing that the rest of your kind of years, it makes you feel lost. But then once I found my way, and especially after talking to so many people and hearing all the good feedback with the podcast of people just loving to be on it, that's why I do it. I want you to feel like you were heard, or we had a conversation and you just had fun, because it makes me think you're going to go do that in your own life. I've had people say that I've struck up conversations on the street again. Hell, one dude goes, I brought my family down. We do game night. I'm like, there you go. I don't even do that with my own family, but I'm glad you're doing it. And he saw a change. And I like that. I'm not showing anybody anything new. I'm just showing people a little bit of, hey, we lost this shit. Like, we lost the communication aspect in our everyday lives. I'm not doing anything different than what else someone else could be doing, but I'm just trying my best here to show people in a different format.
That's beautiful. It sounds very, this is kind of what I was trying to get at the beginning, was I was like, what's in this for you? But what's in it for you is it's not, I don't know, it seems very selfless, like you're growing and being a happier person.
Yeah, people always go, "You so wise for your years." I'm like, that is no benefit to my own. Oh my God. I've only gotten this wise from just talking to people. Like this is everyone else's experiences and the conversations I've had. I've learned to open my mind so much more. That's the only true thing, if I'm going to be selfish or anything, that I take away from this podcast is the amount of how open-minded I have become. I mean, it's really truly opened my eyes, and it made me think in the first place, why would I ever assume that anybody was wrong? Because I think we all have our own thoughts based on like environmental influences. I took psychology. I've tried to understand all that, and we all have our own way of coming about to this world or our ideas on things. So if we disagree, hey, it happens. But I'm never going to tell you you're wrong. I'm just going to say I don't know.
Yeah, I subscribe to a similar philosophy. Um, I think probably because I've come across so many people in certainly throughout teaching, but just in my life, and not one of them is the same. And you can't. I think it would be very hard to go through your life and just assume that you had all the answers and that everybody else was screwed up.
What have you seen the most of, like, what do you try and sway people towards when you're trying to educate them about cannabis? Like, I think a lot of people are just really afraid of trying this thing that's been labeled so long
Hmm.
as like a drug, or they're afraid that it is going to lead to something else. But like I said, that all depends on the person. If you have addictive personality traits, you're going to end up being addicted to something.
Um, I firmly we have a system in our body, the endocannabinoid system, that's like a master control system for everything else, our cardiovascular system, our endocrine system, our reproductive system, and it kind of its job, the endocannabinoid system, is to keep everything in balance. And you produce molecules in your body on your own that help keep you in balance, but when that system is out of whack, and I would venture to say that for most people it is, because the way to get your endocannabinoid system out of whack is to not eat well, not sleep well, not exercise enough, and not handle your stress well. And
It's
I'm going to say that's
homeostasis.
most of us, right? Most of us are not doing those things to keep our body in homeostasis. So supplementing with cannabis is a great way to improve your overall quality of life, your overall health. And you, like, we've all been stigmatized against pot, right? I grew up in the just say no era. I fully subscribe to the all the stereotypes about potheads, and I thought they're all terrible and lazy and um
That's all from like media too. I mean, media gives it
100%.
really, movies even do it. Even the stoner movies make it look like, oh, okay, that's not exactly how it is, but I can understand it. I have been at that point before. But like, if you look at like the Dare program in school, I don't know if you had that when you were in school.
We have, like, we get so much of your media that we all know what the dare program is.
Okay, the fucking Dare program was the worst thing in the world. It was basically a cop coming into school with a briefcase of cocaine, drugs, and other things. All right, kids, this one's called cocaine. This one makes you super strong and able to withstand bullets for a short amount of time.
All
And
the
then like,
kids are like,
that
woohoo.
sounds awesome. And then like, marijuana, don't do this because this could ruin your life. You could end up on the street really enjoying things. And it's like, well, shit, if I don't have to own anything and care about money, that sounds perfect. Oh, most people are just expert minimalists. It's like, it was such a bad program. And then it ended up stopping after like a few years. It was like, yeah, that they did that completely wrong.
And if you look into the history of why cannabis was banned, and like the powers that be that made it so that people could no longer get the sleep they need or the pain relief they need, because we've been using cannabis for literally thousands of years. But when you look into it again, it's like it was big cotton and um like big wood who wanted hemp plants gone,
It's
and big
money.
pharma. Yeah,
That's
like
all it is. And
it's
it's really,
all money.
it's the fucking opening scene to Pineapple Express
Okay, remind me. I've seen it, but you got to remind me.
where the dude smokes weed and they call it whatever. It was like Subject 7 or something. And the guy's sitting there, he goes, how do you feel about how do you feel right now? And he goes, I feel like a nice stick of butter melting on a thing of flapjacks. Yeah. And then he starts going, so what do you think about your superiors? And he starts going, and he starts just whistling and going. But if you look deeper in that, they go, what do you think about your superiors? And he goes, You know what I think about you? Fuck you. That's what I think. This shit is awesome. It's the best stuff. It really opens up your mind because it makes you experience things. It makes you have an enjoyment of life. And you start to realize that the world is kind of running on this government factory worker
Yeah.
lifestyle system. I mean, you grew up, I mean, not grew up, but you worked in the school industry. You understand that they are breeding people to work a 9 to 5 lifestyle. And I will give the education some credit that they are changing a little bit of their methods when it comes to mental health, which I really appreciate, and also nutrition. That's cool too. But it's developed for a factory work style to live a 9 to 5 life, to do this, do that, and then go to bed, do this, do that, and go to bed and live your life on autopilot. But in the world that we're living in now in 2020, there are more entrepreneurs. There are more than anything that has ever been in the past. We're living in a world now where social media has hit us so in a different way that we all need to shift our way of thinking. We need to start using it more of a benefit, but not doing it the way we've been doing it, which is burning the candle at both ends and completely ruining it for us.
Okay, so how should we use social media differently? I'm curious.
Well, start a company. If you want to become an entrepreneur, how many people are living a job right now that they're not comfortable with just because they want the sanctity of a paycheck?
Yeah, because it's safe and because we've been taught that that's what we need to do, right?
Exactly. And taking that leap, how difficult is it for people to take that leap and not have that safety net or not have that income just for a little while?
Yeah. Yeah. I I'm going back to something you were saying earlier about cannabis like opening up your mind to like maybe I don't love my superior and stuff and that sentiment back when it was starting to be banned in the States. A lot of that had to do with the fact that like slaves were out smoking it in the fields and they were having a good time and laughing and starting to think about things differently. And a lot of the banning had to do with Mexicans who were coming up and you know ruining the United States as they thought and bringing this terrible dangerous substance with them. So um a lot of this has to do again with like big company and big money not wanting us maybe to think about life a little bit differently. Like if you can smoke a joint and all of a sudden see things a little bit differently and maybe decide to change your life a little bit, that's going to ruin the system that they've built for us to live in. So I think it's scary times for them.
When we talk about government, I'm not an anarchist at all. I'm really not. But there's always been two things I really started noticing about the government that they've always been afraid of. One was religion. They never touched religion. They would never do anything dangerous to anything to at least infringe upon religion because that's too powerful. Then they had the people. But the thing about people is our minds are easily being able to be focused on something else, such as a war, such as this, such
Mhm.
as that. We're easily distractible.
Yeah.
But Abraham Lincoln said it best: a house divided cannot stand. So it was easy for the people when they would start questioning the government, which is what Pineapple Express is about, that opening scene. The dude's questioning his superior. Why are we underground right now? Why aren't we out expressing this and showing the world about this? That subject 7 is good, like that. And they immediately said illegal afterwards because it was the whole thing. It brings up questions, and they don't want questions. They want this thing. They want you to live this worker lifestyle, live this life so you can do the things and abide. I'm not going to lie. Rules are important. We need those to kind of give us a structure, but doesn't mean we need to do everything and be oppressed and feel suppressed as people. That's when you see people now that start coming out at comedy shows and complaining in this form of hate culture, and everybody becoming a little bit too sensitive, where apparently now we can start being gender identified by your astral sign. It's
What? I did not know that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's a I mean, it's if you that's what you want to be, a Capricorn, go ahead. I don't care. But like I've lived my life by like, okay, if that's what you're interested in, that's what you're interested in. But there are people out there that do a disadvantage of that. I've had a transgender on my podcast before, and I sat there and I was like, correct me if I mislabel you or misgender you or something. And I was corrected, but they related it to me to something I could relate to, which was I'm body dysmorphic. It's why I work out so much. I have a six pack, but I don't see what other people see,
Right.
you know? And I have thoughts of myself just from bullying. And the
Yeah.
way he described it, he was like, imagine being a girl looking at yourself in the mirror and not feeling like you're born in the wrong body or you have the wrong parts. And it hit on such a deep level to me where I understand it. And the people that go out there and are like, oh, my name's Tim. Oh, now my name's Jenny. Oh, now my name's Tim. Well, they'll flip it 50 times in a conversation. I don't believe that you're truly being true to yourself. You're just taking advantage of what is being granted to people that do actually believe a certain
Yeah, I think the point I take from that is that just having the conversation again with somebody was able to open up your mind to a new way of thinking, right? Just being able to sit down with a transgender man and understand how they're feeling.
thing. Hey,
Hmm.
this podcast could have went completely a different route, but you wanted to dig deep, and we dug deep.
Yeah, no, I like I said, I was so curious about you and what this was all about, especially when I was scrolling through, looking at the huge variety of guests that you've had on. I couldn't wrap my head around it. So I'm really glad I got a chance to like pick your brain a little bit too.
You got to be a guest too. I really appreciate you coming out and doing the podcast.
Yeah, me too. This was excellent. Thank you.
And I really try and show people, like, marijuana, especially, like, I only understand from what I've heard from people that do work in the CBD industry, work in growing cannabis. It's slowly becoming legal here. We're starting to see a
Hmm.
major upshift. But
Yep.
the reason why there's been such a problem with it and why it's been so knocked down for history is because the fact is it's really hard to I guess make money from it when it comes to how we're making so much more money doing other drugs, doing other things that cost our, like, the people more money, not the government. It's making them richer. That's why the government has a hard time regulating it.
To go down that little rant area, another reason why you guys are struggling to legalize cannabis as a nation, I believe, is that so much of your prison system is taken up by people on low-level pot crimes, and if pot was suddenly legalized, your prison complex might fall apart because there won't be enough inmates to support the people who are running it.
Have you
So,
have you ever heard of Kim Kardashian?
yep.
Did you know that she's been doing this thing for, I think, over like a year now, where she's been getting people that were wrongly imprisoned
Ah,
off?
so good.
She's helped so many people get released from prison for like life sentences that were wrongly justified. And
Hmm.
I've always talked about, like, I won't bash her anymore after hearing about that. Like, oh my God, like, you know,
Yeah, I didn't know that.
but when you start looking at, like, what could fix our judicial system, a lot of people just break crimes. Like, I've seen homeless people just go to jail just to have the place to sleep and to have a
Right.
guaranteed food.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think we need to do more as people to care about our individual man or individual woman, or just care about the human race in general, because we live in this mindset where, like, when I reach out to a guest or something, I'll commonly get the response, what are you going to attack me? What are you going to do? What are you trying to point out? What do you want to talk about? Why are you doing this? It's like, no, I just want conversation. That's literally it. And it's
But we're so
because
sensitized to think that you probably want something or, yeah, you've got an
because
agenda.
we've lived a life for so many years now, not us, but our history of our kind. We lost the initial innate primal thing about us, which was caring for one another. We would help each other hunt, go out and get a big, like, we realized, instead of hunting by ourselves, let's hunt together because we can get bigger food and bring it back for the people and we can all share. We had that initial mind state when we were starting out, and we've lost it. We've turned into this thing where it's like, oh, it's a business world. I'm going to step on your neck to make sure that company doesn't thrive. I mean, the one community you see half and half in is the cannabis community. You'll see people that promote it, people that love it, and people that try and educate other people like yourself about it, try and be so much beneficial to the community. Then you'll see the complete opposite. You'll see people that are like, you don't even know what weed is, bro. I smoke every day. Blaze it 420. My profile on Instagram is hashtag smoker chick. I'm like, okay, all right, I get it. But there are smaller communities that are old school arts, such as wood making, such as baking, such as cooking. All these people that are diving into these hobbies now because they're starting to do other things at home. Their communities are pure. They're so much beneficial. In the chef community, you'll find some people that'll think they're better than anybody else. But when you look at, like, wood makers, they're also like, good job, man, keep it up. Grillers, good job, man, keep it up. Food
Aw.
reviewers, all this type of stuff. I'm like, it's those are the pure, because we're starting to realize, like, it's so much more of a benefit to support people. I mean, my podcast, not like the one thing when someone asks me how many listeners I have, immediately I just don't want to talk to you, because if that's all you care about, then I don't want you on my show. But
Yeah.
I try and tell people, like, I've started podcasts. I've connected people from hot sauce makers to sub shop owners. I've helped everyone kind of, coffee roasters work with donut shops now where they're
Yeah.
selling their product in there. I'm like, let's just do it. We're all working together. I've networked so many people. I've started probably 30 something podcasts for people. I have done so much. I'm like, because you have creativity, just take the shot, do it, because you're going to fucking love it.
Yeah. And I need to correct you because like 3 minutes ago, you said that nobody cares for people anymore and nobody
Well, not all of
is
us,
like,
but most of
right?
the
Because look at
people.
you, right? Like you're
Yeah.
starting this little revolution.
Yeah.
So,
It's like
yeah,
the same thing with all the people that recycle. There's still going to be that one guy that throws like 20 bags of chips out the window and runs on a diesel truck. All I'm saying is, if as more of people like yourself, if we like me and you, if we started, if there were more people that thought the mindset of what we have, where it's like, I live my life like the Big Lebowski. I don't know if you ever seen that movie.
yeah.
But the dude, I have my degrees also in the Church of the Latter Saint Dude. I swear to you. I have them all hanging above my college degree.
And your bacon one.
I have literally in a row, I have the ordained minister's license under the United Church of Bacon. Then below that, I have my doctorate degree in the comedic arts of dudism. And then below that, I have another one. I think it's something official minister of the Church of the Latter Saint Dude. I never got my Pastafarianism, which I'm pissed about. But below all that is my college degree, and it's just because it's a piece of paper. It's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
something that tells you and gives you a title. And I've had people send me degrees to get on the show, and I'm like, I don't need that. Just bring your voice. Bring yourself. Because people like you, people like me, people like, we're out there, and we all have the ability to think this way. We just need to have that opened up.
Yeah. And you're starting it, or not starting it, but you're doing it and spreading it, right? I think it's like a contagion. You have this conversation with me, and I'm like, oh, we just chatted and it was really nice. And, maybe I go spread that somewhere.
I'm like the DARE program. Instead of like a briefcase of drugs, I'm offering like a briefcase of just random shit. It can go deep, it can go whatever, and let's see where it goes.
I love it. That should be your new tagline.
I'll make a
I'm like,
shirt.
out of the blank podcast. I'm like the DARE program. I don't know. I don't know. I think it might need more work.
I might get sued on rights. I think that
That's
company's
true.
probably like, we're just waiting on the back burner so they reignite us. Well, Andrea, I really appreciate you coming out and doing the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been really fun and like delightful, actually.
I want to kind of give you here a minute at the end to promote your content, all your sites, all your links to where people can find your work, and maybe you can educate them a little bit too on cannabis and the benefits of it.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. So I'm at www.revealcannabis.com, and I have on my site, I book private consultations with people where I help them get started with cannabis. So I recommend specific strains, doses, and ingestion methods that might work for them. I also have a few online classes. One of them teaches you how to make your own cannabis edibles. One of them teaches you how to dose your dog with cannabis if they're suffering from like pain or arthritis. And one of them is for moms who are really struggling, and it kind of breaks down all the techniques that I learned when I was coming out of my depression, as well as healthy cannabis use. So those are online classes. If you happen to be near London, Ontario, Canada, I run workshops around here as well. But yeah, everything's on my website and it links everything. And I also put out a weekly video on YouTube, and each one is a different topic about how cannabis can help you.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode.